Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to the Young and the Restless spoilers on Tuesday, August 19th, Kane Ashby receives a warning, and Phyllis Summers will believe she knows best. This is what YNR fans can anticipate, as Jack Abbott will also receive a surprise. Diane Jenkins Abbott will divert Jack's attention from Billy Abbott and his insider plan to shield Jabot from Kane at the Abbott home. Due to their prolonged stay in France, Jack and Diane's honeymoon attempt didn't exactly work out. To Jack's joy, Diane will therefore insist on a slight remake in Tuesday's program. Later on, Jack and Diane might travel to some far-off places, but for now, they might just take a staycation and enjoy their love for one another. After that, Phyllis will essentially serve as Kane's counselor, giving him advice on how to proceed in various situations. Nick Newman's plea for assistance in Grease the Wheels and forming a Kane coalition may be related to this. Kane might discuss the advantages and disadvantages of a hazardous Newman collaboration with Phyllis. Kane still plans to target Chancellor and Newman Enterprises, but because Jabot is also on the to-do list, Phyllis might see the benefit of using the Newmans to target him first. Although Phyllis may admit that the Newmans aren't exactly reliable, she might also decide that it's best to give them the impression that they're getting their way for the time being. Since Kane will receive a warning, Phyllis would contend that, at this point in his business takeover intentions, he would prefer to have the Newmans as an ally rather than an adversary. Some difficult love news is on the road because Holden Novak will find it difficult to ignore an attraction that is growing across town. Holden's growing attraction to Claire Newman suggests that YNR may be preparing a new pairing, at least until Claire's relationship with Kyle Abbott unavoidably ends. According to spoilers for the Young and the Restless, Holden will fall deeply for Claire, so tune in. Perhaps too sharp for her own good, Phyllis's sharpness was what made her unique in Genoa City. She had the ability to read people, to see through their pretentious lies to the brittle truths they were trying so hard to conceal. She always had the sensation that things was about to fall apart as she sipped her coffee in the Grand Phoenix lobby that morning. Her focus was on Kane, not the guests or their murmurs, despite the city's customary flurry of gossip and power struggles. With the restless energy she recalled from years ago, he entered with his jaw clenched and his eyes darting around. He carried a secret too great for one person to bear. He was more than simply a man passing through. I recognized that look, Phyllis thought as she leaned back and studied him. He is going to destroy someone's entire world. Kane had made a self-promise to return in secret and to remain hidden until he found someone he could trust, but Genoa City did not permit such a return during the day. Every stride seemed like an echo, every look like a spotlight. Almost immediately he saw Phyllis, sitting like a queen, her red hair gleaming in the morning sun, and for a second he thought about going straight back out the door. However, Kane had stopped running. Not from the danger that had followed him back here, not from his history, not from his mistakes. He made himself approach, acting composed and as though his heart wasn't thumping in his chest. He gave her a half-smile as he said, "Phyllis," but she heard the crack in his voice. The way she always tilted her head when she smelled blood in the water, she smirked. "Kane Ashby. You appear to be a man who is overburdened. Why have you returned to Genoa City?" Not only was she curious, but her questioning style and the way her voice twisted around it suggested that she already knew he wouldn't tell her the whole truth. Since Kane had just dropped his first confession and Phyllis was gathering breadcrumbs, she didn't need any more. Even if Kane's warning didn't come right away, Phyllis could sense it simmering beneath the surface. He shuffled too much on his feet, avoided her eyes too long, and when he did speak, his words were harsher than he meant to be. "Just exercise caution, Phyllis. Right now, things aren't as they seem." The gravity in his tone made her heart race, but he didn't say anything else yet. "People you think you can trust, they're not who you think they are. Kane wasn't the type of man to issue unwarranted warnings. Narrowing her eyes and leaning forward, she attempted to read between the gaps he left unfilled. Phyllis responded coolly, "Careful is my middle name," but she was already putting things together on the inside. Kane's admonition was personal, not arbitrary. It indicated that she was unknowingly standing too close to the flames and that something was developing. She wasn't the type of lady to give up, though. More to the point, Kane had stoked her curiosity. "You ought to know better than to present me with a conundrum. Who in this town is lying now? You? Or another person?" Kane rubbed the back of his neck and moaned. He had been burnt by trust before, yet he wanted to tell her everything. He was all too familiar with how relationships changed with a single whispered word and how secrets were twisted in Genoa City. But Phyllis was no ordinary person. Yes, she was dangerous, but she was also unrelenting and, in her own way, loyal, at least to the truth. "I'll just say to keep an eye on Jack. Keep an eye on who he surrounds himself with. Additionally, not every smile you see is genuine." She froze when Jack was brought up. She had loved, argued, betrayed, and forgiven Jack Abbott, sometimes in the same week. It wasn't casual if Kane was involving Jack in this. None of the potential outcomes, business rivals, love relationships, and family secrets, sat well with her. With a gentle thump, she put down her coffee and straightened. "You'd better be prepared to provide evidence if you're telling me that Jack is in danger. I don't engage in guessing games with those who are important to me." At that, Kane's eyes softened. If you knew where to look, Phyllis's heart was visible despite all of her fire. He whispered, "When the time is right, I'll back it up. But now that I've warned you, don't let your guard down around him or anyone else. Believe me, Phyllis. There will be a significant event soon." Jack was headed straight into a trap, and the surprise that awaited him may alter everything he believed to be true about his family, his business, and his future. Kane didn't say this because he was too scared to do so. Jack Abbott stood in his Jabot office that evening, gazing out the window at Genoa City's lights. It was uncommon in and of itself that he felt fantastic, almost too nice. He was uncomfortable with the serenity because life had been a storm for so long. He reflected on his recent decisions, the people he had reintegrated into his life, and the risks he had taken for the sake of his legacy and family. The door behind him then creaked open, as though he had been called by his own misgivings. "Jack, are you working late again?" He could hear the edge beneath the sarcasm and worry that were normally present in Phyllis's voice. Small chat wasn't her purpose. He turned with a little smile. "You are familiar with me. Abbott's work ethic." Her heels clicked on the shiny floor as she took a step closer. "Interestingly, Kane only forewarned me today." She folded her arms and studied him, saying, "You're letting people too close, that you're not seeing what's really happening. Tell me, Jack, what's happening? Nowadays, who do you trust?" Astonished, Jack blinked. "Kane said that? Is he back in town?" He chuckled to himself as he shook his head. Kane's sudden return with conspiracy beliefs is to be expected. "I understand your good intentions, Phyllis, but I'm all right. Everything is under my control." But that tone was familiar to Phyllis. Men who believed they were unbeatable had told her this 1,000 times before. If Kane was correct, Jack Abbott might have thought he had everything under control, but he was actually on the verge of something unexpected. Despite all of her imperfections, Phyllis wasn't going to watch him fail. A complicated web of power struggles, emotional disclosures, and interpersonal relationships is woven together by the story components of Kane's warning, Jack's surprise, and Phyllis knows best. Each of these plot points advances the main themes of trust, dishonesty, and the fallout from hidden truths while also acting as a pivotal moment in character growth. We can identify the underlying conflicts that shape the characters' relationships and the larger narrative framework in which they function by closely analyzing these scenes. Phyllis's claim that she knows best perfectly captures the way her character approaches manipulation and control. Phyllis establishes herself as a figure of authority throughout the narrative, frequently stepping in to help people while seeming to be wise or concerned. But often, her behavior betrays a deeper motive, the preservation of her own power or self-preservation. Her encounters with younger or less seasoned people, whom she shapes to meet her expectations, are a prime example of this dynamic. The adage "Phyllis knows best" is loaded with irony. Although she portrays herself as an unfailing advisor, her choices frequently have unforeseen repercussions, highlighting the brittleness of her assumed authority. Her obsession on controlling results betrays a deep mistrust of other people's independence, which calls into question the ethics of influence and the nature of leadership. Is Phyllis doing really to benefit others around her, or is she just trying to prove her own point of view? The latter is implied by the consequences of her interventions, since those who heed her advice frequently become embroiled in more strife. In contrast, Cain's warning adds a moral caution and foreshadowing element. Cain plays the part of a reluctant prophet, someone who sees trouble ahead but is unsure if his words would be taken seriously, in contrast to Phyllis, who acts from a position of presumed authority. His caution is significant since it differs from Phyllis's orders in that it is not given with the same deceptive intent. Rather, it arises from a point of sincere care that is based on either first-hand knowledge or an intuitive comprehension of what is happening. However, the willingness of others to listen determines how successful his warning will be. Characters that give such warnings are frequently disregarded in stories, their statements written off as paranoid or overly cautious. A larger subject of human fallibility, the propensity to ignore wisdom until it is too late, is addressed by this interaction. A sense of impending catastrophe that permeates later events is another way that Cain's warning heightens tension in the story. His caution changes the course of the narrative by making characters face their own decisions and the potential for permanent consequences, regardless of whether it is justified or shown to be needless. Jack's astonishment serves as a crucial epiphany that upends the status quo and compels people to reconsider their presumptions. In stories, surprises frequently act as pivotal moments when characters must adjust to new circumstances and uncover secrets. In particular, Jack might be surprised by a sudden betrayal, an unanticipated act of kindness, or the revelation of a long-kept secret. Whatever its exact form, its influence comes from its capacity to upset balances of power and destabilize relationships. If the surprise turns out to be a betrayal, it might highlight how rapidly partnerships can fall apart and how brittle character trust is. It could act as a stimulus for personal development or reconciliation if it is a favorable revelation. The way Jack's surprise is delivered will determine how effective it is. A well-planned twist will seem earned, while an unexpected one runs the risk of coming across as forced. In any case, it serves to push characters into new emotional or psychological realms and to question their preconceptions. A story full of drama and thematic depth is produced by the interaction of these three components: Cain's warning, Jack's surprise, and Phyllis's control. Cain represents the voice of caution that is frequently ignored, Phyllis represents the appearance of stability via dominance, and Jack's surprise acts as the destabilizing factor that highlights the shortcomings of both strategies. Collectively, they show how power, trust, and dishonesty are ever-changing in human interactions. The way these narrative threads depict real-world dynamics is among their most captivating features. In families, the workplace, or larger societal systems, people who use power under the guise of wisdom behave similarly to Phyllis, who believes she knows best. Whether overt or covert, the opposition she faces illustrates the universal conflict between autonomy and authority. Cain's caution also speaks to the experience of people who recognize danger before others do, only to be written off until a crisis arises. His part emphasizes how challenging it is to convey pressing realities in a society that frequently puts comfort over forethought. Meanwhile, Jack's surprise reflects the unpredictability of life in general, where preconceived notions can be disproved at any time. It's also important to consider the emotional impact of these occasions. Phyllis's need on control might be the result of deeper concerns, such as a need to prove her value by relying on other people or a fear of being irrelevant. If this is true, her behavior is not only cunning but also incredibly human, displaying a weakness that gives her a more complex personality. Cain's caution may also have emotional implications. If he has previously seen such circumstances, it may stem from trauma or remorse. His character gains depth as a result, evolving from a simple plot mechanism to a person with a personal emotional past. Depending on its nature, Jack's surprise could be driven by a variety of feelings, including love, despair, vengeance, or even an incorrect sense of justice. The effect of the revelation increases with the complexity of the motivation. These components advance the plot narratively as well. Whether through direct confrontation or the unexpected effects of her activities, Phyllis's interventions immediately cause tension. Cain's warning prepares the viewers for the impending catastrophe by creating tension for the future. Jack's astonishment serves as the story's climax or pivotal moment, redefining its course. Each element thus contributes to character development and thematic investigation in addition to carrying out a specific structural function. The capacity of Phyllis knows best, Cain's warning, and Jack's surprise to entwine narrative and personal stakes is ultimately what makes them significant. They are not just discrete incidents, rather, they are interrelated moments that influence the plot's development and the character's growth. They serve as a vehicle for the story's exploration of ageless issues that cut across fiction, such as trust, power, and the effects of our decisions.